Hello, dear viewers. Welcome to Wild Werewolf. Are you ready to embark on a wild and thrilling journey into the world of werewolves? Here. We'll explore the untamed nature, the raw power, and the captivating stories of these mythical creatures. So, get comfortable and let's unleash the wildness together. Chapter 49, Dilemma Sam. So that happened. Just when I was getting comfortable with the idea of staying here. I still am. Strictly speaking, I do have a life here with my family and Emmett should I desire. And I was comfortable with putting New York on the back burner for now or maybe ever. However, if Emmett's not going to be Alpha and I'm not going to be Luna, what's keeping us here? Yes, I could probably be a country housewife if I wanted. Emmett working as a warrior or something. Sure, that'd be fine. It's a good, honest life, if I wanted it. That is, but I don't. Not in the slightest. It's one thing to take over the leadership of a community you're born to lead. Literally. They've been bred to succeed their father and it's fine. Dynasty and all that. But now the game has completely changed. Now there's no excuse for him to stay here. I just had to convince him that dropping out of everything he knows his whole life and follow me into the unknown is the right path for us. It is time to sacrifice. Isn't it? Not that it'd be such a sacrifice following the love of his life to her dream city since she was a little girl. Right. I'm sorry. Bro, I know you really wanted to be Beta. Emmett told Paul while we were eating lunch the next day. School waits for no ascending wolf. Or human. Thanks. I'm sorry for you too. I think we would have smashed it as Alpha and Beta. Paul said confidently. He actually didn't take that bad not ascending. He's certainly better than I am. And I've only known about this for a few months. Are you really not gonna tell me who you're gonna pick for Beta? And your mate? You know. John snickered. I could tell he's proud to say that word. He yearned for it by more than a year. You mean, am I gonna tell the blabbermouth who let his dad find out about our secret room? No, I will not. But I love you. She snickered and kissed him on the cheek. So adorable. John wanted to be mad, but who could resist a mate's kiss? It's just disrespectful to not tell my dad. He's the Beta of the pack. John replied with hurt in his voice. John, there is not a single man on earth I respect more than your dad. Aside from my two. I'm well aware. Don't worry. She rebuked, sounding annoyed. But John's not happy. His dad is his hero. Whoever you choose, I'm sure they're gonna be great. Alpha. Paul said with a sad smile, looking at her. Thanks. Paul. I do appreciate it. I hope you stay on as our warrior. She replied with a hopeful tone. You're not getting rid of me this easy. Don't worry. I'll follow in my dad's footsteps. He spoke with misty eyes. It's difficult not to tear up at the situation. Plus, where would I go? To the Blood Moon Pack. No, I don't want my father-in-law to be my boss. I'm not crazy enough to face Delta Jones. He snickered. We laughed. He's not wrong. That man is massive. Oh my goddess. Your dad just texted me asking if I want to train with him to make Delta. This is the best day ever. Apart from when I met my mate. Of course. He shouted as he showed us the text from Mr. Underwood on his phone. He looked radiant. He didn't ask me if I wanted to train for Delta. John smirked. Brooding. That's because you can't. You already are gonna be Luna. You can't be Delta even if you wanted. Paul replied in a serious tone. I know. Paul. That was a joke. Not to mention, now I can't even be a warrior. Now my life is too precious to risk. He continued as he sounded disappointed. I'm sorry. I know you wanted to be a warrior. But you can still train. You know, as long as it's inside the compound. You can never do patrols. Rosalind told him, stroking his hair. I know, but thanks. And I will. I may not be Alpha, but I'll be damned if I'm gonna let you fight rogues in case of another attack. John spoke with conviction. Okay, first. Nobody lets me do anything. I do what I want. And I don't mean that because I'm Alpha. Second, I appreciate your chivalry and will of course allow you to fight on my behalf as you're the strongest of us two. Physically, I mean. Rosalind lectured. I'm so in awe of her. She is such an alpha. Even I could tell. John to look proud of her. I'm so in love with you. He professed to her with hearts in his eyes. I take the opportunity and pull Emmett aside for a moment after we ate and returned our trays so. I started, with some hesitancy. I was wondering, now that we're not the power couple anymore, can I make a suggestion? I said, sheepishly. He looked at me and smiled widely. I see where this is going. In fact, I was just waiting for you to bring it up as I'm sure you would. He smirked with a knowing glance. So you know what I'm gonna say. I have a college acceptance letter. You have a college acceptance letter. I mean, he really is the most decent man in the world. And I don't just mean that because he raised a child on his own while his partner was away at college. I blurted. I do have so much respect for that man. Rosalind's right. I know. Right. Way to make the rest of us feel bad in comparison. And yes, I have thought about it. I'm just a little conflicted. I don't even know if there's a pack in New York City. Or if there's a place where I could run. He told me a little unsure in his tone. Can I think on it? I mean, we don't graduate for a couple more weeks. So he trailed off. You can. Of course. Just don't forget there is a deadline to confirm your attendance. You know, to confirm you're attending college next fall. I tried to make it known we need a reply. Yes, I know. Don't worry about it. Okay. Let's go to class. The bell is about to ring. He deflected. How do you always know when it's about to ring? I asked him curiously as we go back. The vibrations. I can pick up the vibration of the bell as it's about to ring. If we're close enough. Of course. He explained. Damn. I kinda wish I was a werewolf. Not gonna lie. As the week went on, things were falling back into place. Rosalind started the alpha training with her dad. And since we didn't know who's gonna be beta, Nate trained Paul for delta, which is a position that can only be occupied by a warrior after an election amongst themselves. But only after the current delta retires. Of course. And that is not due for more than a decade. I just can't believe you won't tell Nate that the beta is. When did I ever give you the impression it's okay to be disrespectful? Daniel shouted. He's furious about Rosalind's refusal to tell anyone who the beta is gonna be. As you know, beta is chosen by the alpha as it'd have to be someone you absolutely trusted. A good beta like Mr. Underwood reflected greatly on his alpha. And he's the pride of the pack. Beta Nate. Now, if she chooses poorly, an underperforming beta could put the entire pack in jeopardy and even get them both impeached. That means removed from leading the pack and expelled altogether. So, with that in mind, you can see why Daniel is livid. Never. Dad don't worry. I'm sure my future father-in-law will be more than happy to shadow train the future beta. Once they ascend. Rosalind replied calmly. Of course. Alpha. Anything you need. Nate told her. He looked surprisingly chipper despite everything. It's Saturday afternoon. We're all having lunch at the pack house. Like we usually do. Except Nate. Daphne and Matt are here. Not to mention Paul and his mate, who took her meals and stayed at the pack house on weekends. The only time they spent together since she's from another pack and is still in school like the rest of us. I'm with you, Uncle. I read her the riot attack this week at school. I just can't believe she wouldn't tell my dad. And he's one of the only two who respected our union. I mean, apart from broadcasting our secret room. John also looked pissed. I'll never be cool with unmated sex. And I told you that repeatedly, especially after you defiled my house. Nate scolded his son, who looked down immediately. Daphne gasped at hearing this. You had sex in Nate's house. Who are you? Rosalind. Daniel reprimanded her. He looked shocked. Felix not so much. Thanks. Beta. She snickered. I had just found out my brother met his mate and I lost Alpha. Excuse me for wanting something good in my life. She defended herself. I wish you stopped speaking to me as if I committed a crime, Dad. I behaved no different than you at my age. Except that you had male privilege and the support of your parents. Rosalind jabbed. Also, I don't think you have the moral high ground to chastise me on this. Father, Last time I checked, only Uncle Nate and Aunt Denise actually waited for their mates. Rosalind lectured. Everyone gasped. I mean, everybody. Plus, I've told Daddy, I'm not a complete rebel. She continued. Daniel was gobsmacked and stared at his husband in shock. Rosalind, you're gonna do great on the Alpha Challenge. You're a natural. Denise complimented her. She giggled. Oh, it's gonna be a bloodbath. Daniel didn't know it at the time, but he created the challenge for you, not for Emmett. And I bet anyone any money that my daughter will be undefeated till the day little Felix ascends. Or Terrell. Felix stated. Proudly. Daniel gasped, but everyone agreed with their faces. Thanks, Daddy. I love you so much. Also, I do want to thank you, Uncle. I know you knew about the second secret room and I appreciate the fact that you never threw it on our faces. Again, Rosalind replied, grinning. Props needed to be given for who deserved it. But everyone gasped, including John. You're welcomed. Alpha, I was against it, as everybody knows. But there's no point in calling you out for it, especially with your mate timeline. At least, I knew you're both safe. He replied with a soft smile. Thanks. Dad, you really do know everything. John croaked. He looked uncomfortable. I understand now why you didn't say anything to me about John and Rosalind being together. Brother, I do. And I respect you so much for your integrity. Which is why it's even more staggering that my daughter refuses to tell you who she'll choose for Beta. Daniel stated, displeased. You're lucky I don't go back on my word. Otherwise Emmett would ascend as Alpha. He continued and everybody gasped. The twins are gobsmacked. Wait, you can do that? I blurted, shocked. I can do whatever I want. I'm the Alpha, Daniel replied. Boastfully. Everybody's floored. Sam, do you see that strapping young warrior at the end of the table? His name is Greg Burke, Daniel said, pointing at the guy eating at the last seat. At this, he and everyone else is curious about what Daniel's going to say. When Felix was attacked all those years ago, I ordered the warriors to not let him leave the compound alone for whatever reason. And I also told them that I would kill any warrior that would allow it to happen, even if Felix gets back unharmed. He told me and I gasped. Of course, that has never happened. My mate never went out alone anymore. That was almost 20 years ago. But if tomorrow, for some reason, Burke here, who is fourth-generation warrior, whose grandfather was Delta of the Pack, lets Felix out without an escort, I would find him and I'd kill him for disobeying the Alpha. Daniel continued and the boy gasped. So do all of us. Now, I never wanted to kill any warrior. I really don't. But my point with all of this is, I don't go back on my word. And Rosalind will ascend, whether I like it or not. He concluded. Don't worry, Greg. I won't go out alone until my daughter ascends. I promise. Felix tried to use humor to diffuse the tension left by his mate. I'm with you, Dad. She should tell Uncle Nate. It's against everything we were raised. As for everything else, I'm with Rosalind. A woman should never be made to feel ashamed over who she chooses to spend time with, as long as it's legal and consented. Emmett stated and we gasped. I mean, every single person looked at Emmett shocked. I kissed him, I was so proud. Okay, who are you? I'm speechless. Rosalind gasped. Hi, my name is Emmett Huntington, and I'm going to college in New York with my mate. He replied and I'm in shock. Everyone gasped again. After they caught their breaths, they congratulated us. It felt nice having everyone's support, especially his dad's. Congratulations. Bro, I'm really proud of you. I hope you stay in touch and visit us. Also, I want to thank Beta Underwood for offering to train me for Delta. I really appreciate, sir. Especially since no one could ever replace Delta Huntington. But I'm sure as hell gonna try if I'm allowed. Paul spoke. He looked proud of Emmett. Don't worry, Paul. You're gonna have plenty of time to train as I'm not stepping down anytime soon. Denise told him with confidence. That woman's amazing. I can't even imagine what it took for her to succeed in a male-dominated career. She's right. It'll be a cold day and hell the day I remove the first female delta of the pack. Rosalind spoke confidently. Denise gasped. Okay, now you're my favorite. Denise stoled Rosalind with a wide smile. Hey, I would keep you too. Aunt Denise, if it was up to me. John winned. He was always her favorite until now. Dad, have you scheduled the Ascension ceremony yet? Emmett asked. Looking at him. I did. Right after your graduation. I mean, Sam and Rosalind. Daniel replied. Also, when you go to New York in the fall, Felix and I will go too. To visit, I mean. Not to live over there. I'm not made of money. And I do have a kid to put off college. He announced it. Emmett static. How wonderful. Dad, I can't wait. We'll have the best time together, the four of us. Emmett said with enthusiasm. Don't worry. Sam, we won't cramp your style. Felix smirked. I'm glad. They're so welcoming to me and I couldn't be happier that they come along. Sam, you need to repeat back after me. Emmett asked me when we're back at his room. Alone. Later that day, okay. I, Emmett Huntington. Accept you, Samantha Cole, as my mate. He spoke in serious tone. I, Samantha Cole, accept you, Emmett Huntington, as my mate. After that, he kissed me. We undressed each other as we're much more comfortable with ourselves. He kissed me gently all over my body, but always respecting my boundaries. We made sweet love trough the night and eventually he bit my neck as we climaxed. It hurt, of course, but not as much as I think. Afterwards, he just stood there next to me with his arms around me tightly while we're naked, enjoying each other's warmth. It's the best feeling in the world. Now, I'm the happiest I've ever been. Sure, I should care about losing Luna, but that's never been my destiny. It's clear now that New York was always my fate. And with a great man by my side, I couldn't be more excited for the wonders it had to offer. Here we come. Chapter 50, 1,000 Years Epilogue. John for Dunderwood. It's a good day for an ascension. After waiting for almost a month to ascend, due to the fact that we had already tried once but failed, on the count that the wrong person would have ascended if allowed. Point. Set match. Doubt us. Now, the real Alpha would ascend. The correct one. And she was born for this. If I may say so myself. I may not know if I was born to be Luna. If I'm honest, I was born to be Beta, or at least Warrior. Luna, not so much. No offense, Uncle Felix. I love you. However, I am without a shred of doubt born to love her. She is my one true parent. And even when the odds were overwhelming against us, I never stopped hoping. Of course, I didn't think this was possible, but I hoped I could never give her up. Or will I ever? Sure, there's a lot to deal with it. And I don't mean her type of personality. Some men can handle when a woman is the alpha of their relationship and Rosalind is going to be the alpha of an entire pack. But that isn't nor ever was a problem for me. Maddox Brady, my fated mate. White splashed around me and my wind spun with the beat of the heavy techno music the DJ was playing. Have you seen my mom? She is a human who puts the fear of goddess in her brother-in-law, Alpha Daniel Huntington. He is 6'3" foot tall and twice her build, not to mention a werewolf. But she is fearless and confident and put him in his place at any given time. Just remember what happened after the attack of the robes. And I'm not even gonna mention my dad, cause that's her mate. But let's just say he is not the alpha of that relationship either. So no, I'm not discouraged by her fierciness. I'm more discouraged by the fact that our lives have already been napped out by her. Even our child has already been named. Literally, she has named our unborn child. Oh, and in case you're judging me for letting her name our heir with her surname instead of mine, don't. You don't know what she did to me in the second secret room. It was too racy to be put it in the book. So, let's just say it involved me having to make a complete shave and leave it at that. And yes, I don't mean the face. I don't grow beard yet. I was 15 at the time. Not that I have any now at 16. So no, it wasn't a difficult trade-off. Also, I can only touch one woman for the rest of my long life. Not that I would ever want to touch another, on the count of the mate bond and all that. In short, there is a lot to deal with. I'm actually lucky she decided to name our child Felix. He is the second man I love the most in the world. Not counting Matt. I mean, my only uncle. So I'm glad. Before I leave you to my mate, can I be honest for a second? I don't really care about any of that. I only care about her. After spending an excruciating amount of time thinking I'd lose her at any time, I'm just happy to have her all to myself now. Sure, I do share her with the rest of the pack, but that's just business hours, apart from an emergency. My point is I get to love her. I get to enjoy her company. Her smile and, of course, our great sex. And I mean great. That's what's important right now. The rest I can deal with it as we go along. I'm just finishing getting dressed for the Ascension ceremony. Just between us. She was always the only choice for Alpha. She was born for it. She's simply the best. Rosalind Ford Huntington, the compound was packed. Guests were crawling the land. My dad's looked sharp as ever. And yes, we did get additional chairs cause no one is missing out this time. This is a first for the entire state, not to mention for a pack this size. This is the first time a woman ascends as Alpha in the entire South. With the Alpha Challenge, women used to be seen as an unlikely candidate to survive the fight to the death. And if you haven't seen one, I recommend the first book, Where My Daddy Meets My Dad. It's filled with all sorts of drama, including this one. But that was then. This is now. A new challenge has been put into law. A debate. Why should a muscle man lead the pack? We should be led by the smartest. The strongest one will leave to being Delta. But more on that comes shortly. My dad is about to hit the microphone. Good afternoon, esteemed guests and beloved pack members. Welcome to the Ascension ceremony part 2. The revelation. He started and the crowd laughed. Have I got a story to tell you? Remember my daughter's special mate. Turns out my brilliant Rosalind was so difficult to pair that the goddess had to make a special concession on the age restriction between mates. The crowd gasped at this. Literally, it has never happened before. The goddess spared my daughter with a boy 2 weeks outside her age range. Unbeknownst to all of us, my daughter started dating this boy more than a year ago, even though they knew they couldn't be mates. Of course, when I found out, I tried to stop it. But my mate, in his infinite wisdom, let them date as long as they respected certain rules. Dad continued, enthusiastically. It turns out teenagers are not so good at respecting rules. Who knew? He joked. The crowd laughed. Anyway, this boy that she dated turned 16 a few weeks ago, and because the goddess lowered the age of consent for this particular case, she was able to send him as her mate. It was all a shock for us. He spoke and everyone gasped. Honestly, if I hadn't seen her eyes turning black in the boy's presence, I wouldn't believe it myself. But I did. I also have a room full of witnesses. Dad was gobsmacked and so was the crowd. In conclusion, the rule was whoever gets mated first ascends. My son found his mate a few months ago. That's who we thought was going to ascend. But my daughter found hers more than a year ago. She just couldn't have known he was her mate until now. The crowd was floored. No one could have seen this coming. Ever. But before I bring them out here, 2 warnings. First, don't freak out when you hear they share a name in common. They are both Fords and are legally cousins. The crowd gasped. However, she is not blood related to him. He is Ford by blood, but she is Ford by law. As you all know, I used to surrogate to have my children as my mate is a man, so she's only related to Felix by the love they both share. He explained and everyone melted. Second, my daughter, the first female to ever become Alpha in the entire South, has decided not to reveal her choice for Beta until now. So, without further ado, I give you Ascending Alpha Rosalind Ford Huntington and Ascending Luna John Ford Underwood. My dad announced, looking proud. Daddy was tearing up already in the back of the podium. The crowd gathered gave us a standing ovation as we came to the podium. It was very overwhelming for me and John. Then, I took the microphone. Good afternoon, honored guests and pack members. I thank my dad for the introduction. And it is quite the story. It would be almost unbelievable had I not experienced it myself. By the way, you think my dad had a tough time picking the alpha? Try having to pick a beta. I started and the crowd laughed at my words. I was going to pick an Underwood, but now I made it to him and there weren't any more available. I mean, my beta can't be 11 years old. I joked and they laughed. And our beta is a great one. The best this pack has ever had. A round of applause for Beta Underwood. I asked and they complied. He was sitting next to Daphne at the back of the podium, tearing up. So I thought to myself, who do you know that is committed to the pack? Honest, reputable, comes from a good family. But unfortunately my Aunt Denise already has a job. I snickered and they laughed. Denise was glowing with pride not far from what Dad was. In all seriousness, it was a daunting task. And when I shared my pick with Beta Underwood, he was shocked to hear my choice. I said this and John, Dad, Emmett and Paul, who was in the crowd with Christina, gasped. Fun fact for people who don't know who their mates are going to be most of the time. Werewolves have pretty boring love stories. Yes, we have the story of how Luna lured and met Alpha Casper at our house all those years ago. She's a great woman in Luna. But like I said, boring. They laughed. Laura looked radiant seated in the front of the crowd next to her mate. So imagine my surprise when I was a little girl and heard the story of a rogue attack that nearly killed Daddy Felix. The rogue who hurt him died. Of course. But there was another rogue with him. One that did not touch my daddy. But my father didn't know that at the time. He only knew his mate was in danger. So when he was just about to strike her, one of the warriors who were present with him at the woods shifted back into human and begged Dad not kill her. The crowd gasped. All ears on me. His brother and Mom are sobbing. See, he had just found out right then and there that that rogue was his mate. All gasped again. Of course. Dad did not kill her. That warrior was Johnson, one of the strongest we ever had here at the pack. Unfortunately, he was killed like most of our warriors in the attack last year. It was a hard blow to his family, as to many others including my own, who also lost a family member. He was respected by his peers, loved by his mate and worshipped as great dad by his two sons. This story happened 20 years ago and still is one of the greatest love stories of our pack. My voice starts cracking as I'm fighting back tears. The crowd cheers me in applause. I apologize for the long introduction. I take it after my dad. They laughed. I give you ascending beta Paul Daniel Johnson and his mate Christina Smith-Jones. I announced. There's another standing ovation. Paul was gobsmacked. So was everyone. They were cheered loudly as they took to the podium. We greet each other. My dad took back the microphone. Well, hell, that took a turn. I can't believe Nate knew about it and didn't tell anyone. Dad snickered. John. Paul and Christina took positions in front of each other at the podium. Now, the acceptance ceremony. Dad continued. Rosalind Ford Huntington, accept you, John Ford Underwood, as my mate and my Luna. John Ford Underwood, accept you, Rosalind Ford Huntington, as my mate and my alpha. Paul Daniel Johnson, accept you, Christina Smith-Jones, as my mate. Christina Smith-Jones, accept you, Paul Daniel Johnson, as my mate. Who the moon goddess united in bond no one can torn us under. Dad stated in the microphone. There's another round of applause as each couple kissed one another. The mates go to the back of the podium. Me and Paul knelt before Dad and Uncle Mate, respectively. Repeat after me. Rosalind Ford Huntington, born of Daniel Aguilar Huntington, accept the charge of being alpha of the pack. Dad said and I repeated it, and promised to lead it, in according to its laws and traditions, that I freely assume, devoid of any personal feelings, to the best of my ability. So help me goddess. He continued and I repeated it. Repeat after me. Paul Daniel Johnson, born of Michael Carl Johnson, accept the charge of being beta of the pack. Uncle Nate said and Paul repeated it. The rest of the speech he repeated was the same as mine. Dad and Nate put a crown of flowers at our heads. Rise, Alpha Rosalind Ford Huntington. And so I did. Rise, Beta Paul Daniel Johnson. And so he did. I give the Rutherford Falls pack your new alpha and beta, Rosalind Huntington and Paul Daniel Johnson. Dad announced it. His last act as alpha of the pack. Tears in his eyes. The crowd bowed their heads and clapped for what it felt like the longest time. Now comes the alpha challenge. Rule is only the alpha and beta are allowed at the podium, apart from the challengers. So it was cleared in its entirety. Everyone stepped back to the crowd. Good afternoon, folks. I am your new beta, who didn't know was ascending until just now. Paul started with a joke. Sort of. No one really knew except for Nate. Here's what happens next. I'll open the podium to 1 challenger at the time, limited to 10 challengers. But in the next full moon, 10 more can come up. And so on. He continued. Each challenger can pick out a question at random from the bowl. The pack members then raise a hand to whoever answer they like best. Okay, first challenger. Can you tell Paul was nervous? Question: a lot of people from outside the compound think the pack fee is too high. What are your thoughts? Paul read it out on the microphone. That's a fair question. Just the other day, I was walking downtown and saw the children playing at their yard. I think they were Garcias. See, the feedback members pay is what support the warriors. You know, who work exclusively for the protection of the pack. That's why most of them were killed in the attack last year. Do you know who wasn't killed in the attack? Pack members who live outside the compound. That's because our brave warriors and people who live inside defended our land with their lives. That's why those children I saw were protected. So if we didn't have the warriors, how long do you figure it would take the attackers till getting to those children? Or any of the pack's children? How do you put a price on the safety of your family? Our compound is secured. They couldn't get in here. We didn't leave our safety to face them thinking about us. We did so our people living outside would be protected. Which they were. Boom. Who do you think won the debate? It was a slaughter. My dad so proud his mouth wouldn't close. 10 challengers. 30 questions. 30 straight wins. After it finished, Paul declared the challenge portion closed and said, "Long live the alpha." To which the crowd chanted back. We got down from the podium to greet everyone present. Paul and myself. He's grinning from ear to ear, especially with his mate by his side. Now school's over. He did it for forever. Like I said, expect a baby in no more than 9 months. Emmett hurriedly gives Paul the biggest hug. Bro, I didn't see it coming. He gasped. Me neither. When she started telling my parents' story, I just thought she's just being manipulative. Paul snickered. It wasn't until she said my name that I realized it. He had a giant smile. So did Christina, who was congratulated as well. Congratulations. I'm proud of both of you. Emmett hugged me too. I thanked him. Sam's looking gorgeous next to him and I could see she had a mate mark. I just can't believe my dad knew about it, and didn't tell anyone. John's gobsmacked. Luna, the bait knows everything. Have you not been paying attention? I teased him, playfully. Why did you think your dad was training Paul? Bitch, please. I couldn't help but boast. It's a simple but masterful plan. Touch Alpha. John smirked. He really was surprised. But I would never actually disrespect Uncle Nate by not telling him. There's a difference between rebellion and disrespect, and the two can never be crossed. I received the biggest kiss and hugs from dads too. It's a glorious evening all around. I even heard Georgia got mated to Alpha Casper and Luna Lauren's son. He finally could ascend. The first interracial pairing for the Williams too. Good times. Sarah also got mated to one of the new warriors of our pack. And Casper's second son was mated to a boy also from our pack. It's a shocking night all around. If that still shocks anyone, that is. But hey, it's still the South. Much later, as expected, all my belongings were moved to the Alpha's quarter. I entered it with my Luna as we'd finally can spend some guilty-free quality time together. We still haven't slept together or done anything other than kiss since I turned 18. As I entered, I went straight to the shower. John doesn't take long to join me. Oh, I dreamed about this bed for the longest time. I croaked once I got on it, wearing only a towel. Tell me about it. It's the best part of being Luna. He snickered. Also lying down in a towel. Really? So am I not the best part? I teased him. You are the best person I've ever known. I mean, not counting my parents. He said, not missing a beat. I don't. I spoke and moved to kiss him. He comes closer to me. You are the one that I could never live without. You are my dream girl. My alpha. The first thought I have in the morning and the last one before I go to sleep. He declared himself in between kisses. You are my golden boy. The only one that I want. The one I love. I feel as if I've waited 1,000 years so that we could be together. You're my mate. My beloved. Finally, I can let my guard down. Finally, I can be happy by your side. I professed. Deeply enamored. We made sweet, passionate love in our new room and afterwards marked each other for eternity. Truthfully, I should have waited till he's 18. Like Paul and Christina. But I've waited too long already. I've waited forever to be happy. And though the journey may not be over, he still had to finish high school and is still a minor. I'm just happy we could be free to love each other. I've waited for this for so long. To get my dues and now I'm fulfilled. Now I'm ready for whatever life throws at me. Come what may. Emmett and Sam went to NYC in the fall and were happy while attending college. Dads went along to help them get settled and returned here. My brother and Sam would visit us every summer. But they never lived in Rutherford Falls again. They live happily together in New York. Dad's rented a small house in the compound 2 months after returning from New York. Daddy Felix still helped out John with his Luna activities. As he was back to school the next fall, Paul moved out of his mom's house and got a room at the Peck House with his mate. He and Christina were very happy together. To my surprise, Paul held off on getting her pregnant. He said he wanted to enjoy his mate, just the two of them, for a while. Inspired by Aunt Daphne, Christina went to nursing school on a neighbor city and became a nurse at the same hospital Aunt Daphne worked. She and Paul were married as soon as she graduated. He turned out to be a very good beta, and still took advice from Uncle Nate on occasion. Denise defied Paul every step of the way. As expected, she remained Delta till she was forced to retire at 50. More than 10 years after we ascended. Aunt Daphne and Uncle Nate still took care of John until he graduated school and moved inside the Pack House with me. Till then, we only saw each other on weekends and at night briefly, with the exception of summer winter breaks. Matt also shifted at his 13th full moon. To Daphne's despair, he eventually got mated to a beautiful girl at 18. He lives at the Pack House with her as he became a warrior. John remained training with Aunt Denise for 2 more years. Afterwards, he trained on occasion. Despite the initial distance, we were very happy together. 1 year after John moved into the Pack House, I got pregnant. I delivered healthy boy at 21. John was 19. A year after that, we had, you guessed it, twins. Then, we stopped. Their names were Felix Underwood Huntington, Carol Huntington Underwood, and Nathaniel Huntington Underwood. I know. Right. Before I forget, Paul had a son 5 months earlier than me and a daughter the same age as Carol and Nathaniel. He eventually rented a 3-bedroom house inside the compound. His brother and mom continued living together at their house, and he often visited them, especially after his first baby was born. Maddox Spidey, my fated mate. White splashed around me and I wind spun with the beat of the heavy techno music the DJ was playing. His brother became a warrior like their father and got mated to a girl at 20, and we all lived happily ever after. LT3 bonus chapter, Scar Tissue John. 16 years after the Ascension. Time goes by so fast. Isn't it? It seems like only yesterday I was a teenager who wasn't even allowed to sleep at the house on weekdays. Even though I am the Luna of the pack. Parents. Am I right? It's not like I was going to evade school if I slept with my mate during the week. My mate. Even with all the years that have passed, I still had trouble owning up to the word. Not that I didn't know I'd have a mate. Of course I did. I just didn't know I was even allowed to dream about Rosalind being my mate. I certainly wanted to, but wanting has nothing to do with mates. My dad never wanted a human mate. My uncle, the former Alpha, never wanted a male mate. At first, anyway. They're one of the happiest couples I know, despite the odds, and were the power couple of the pack for nearly 20 years. That is until my mate ascended. In a twist fit for the goddess, Rosalind won the mate race and ascended even though her brother was supposed to. But that was then. This is now. At the present time. I'm a proud father of 3. My eldest son, Felix, is 13 and will have his first shift today at the full moon ceremony. Might wins, I know. Right, Carol and Nate are 12. But since girls shift first, she is probably going to shift tonight too. Alongside her older brother. There are only 2 major milestones in a werewolf's life. One is the first time you shift into your wolf. It's your first contact with your animal side, and it can be very dangerous if left unchecked. That's why parents have to keep watch of their offspring on this auspicious occasion. I remember when my dad was with me on my first shift. You know, 'cause my mom is a human, we didn't know whether or not I'd shift at all. And for a moment, I really thought I wouldn't. And it crushed me. But as soon as I did, it was a very special moment in my life, as was in my dad's. So you can see why I'm so excited to experience the same with my children. Oh, and in case you're wondering what the second milestone is, I have one word for you. Spidey, my fated mate. Lights flashed around me and the moon spun with the beat of the heavy techno music the DJ was playing. Are you ready for today? I asked Rosalind as I wake her up with a kiss on the forehead. It should be noted that I love waking up next to her every day. But the alpha's bed is a pleasure all on its own. Good morning. Spidey, my fated mate. Lights flashed around me and the moon spun with the beat of the heavy techno music the DJ was playing. You mean, for someone to Google questions and try to trick me in the alpha challenge? Sure. Why not? It's not like it's a 136 years old legacy anyway. She snickered. You'd think someone would get less sassy with age. As we are in our early 30s, you'd think wrong. As if anyone could ever have a chance against a woman of your intellect. I stated, she really is a remarkable girl, and I'm not saying that because she's my mate. In the alpha challenges, each challenger gets 3 questions, and she has never got one wrong. She's never lost the favor of the crowd. In 16 years, you're just saying that 'cause you have to. She jokingly rebuked. Oh, I don't have to do anything. You're stuck with me forever. I'm saying that 'cause it's the truth. I retorted in ironic fashion. She smiled wide. Okay, you win. She smirked as she kisses me. I love her so much I don't even care about morning breath. Also, I rarely win. Good morning, Alpha. Good morning, Luna. The warriors at the table stand up to greet us. So does the unmated members. But the Huntingtons don't get up. Just to greet us. But they all bow their heads. Good morning, everyone. How are you feeling this morning? Are you ready for the full moon ceremony? She said as we take our seats at the head of the table. I was born ready. I'm a Huntington. Felix bragged, feeling proud of himself. I am ready too. My Spidey, my fated mate. Lights flashed around me and the wind spun with the beat of the heavy techno music the DJ was playing. I am Underwood and proud, Carol boasted. Way to go, daughter. We are Underwood and proud. I told her and caressed her head. Yes, you are, Felix. And Huntingtons get things done. Rosalind told him with a boastful smile. You know, Felix, there's a small chance you don't shift tonight. But in any case, you're still our son. Forever. I deadpan as I serve myself some food. My Spidey, my fated mate. Lights flashed around me and the wind spun with the beat of the heavy techno music the DJ was playing. Felix shouted. He looked shocked. All of them were. Yes, when your ancestral is human, there is a small chance you take after them and don't shift. I continued, still in a calm manner. Rosalind glared daggers at me. But if I don't shift, I can't ascend as Alpha. Oh my goddess. Are you kidding me, Dad? Felix looked desperate. I was almost feeling sorry for him. Son, the best quality an Alpha can have is humility. Do you know why the warriors and the other pack members share every meal with us? I questioned, looking at him seriously. Because they don't have a home. Felix answered unsure and all the presents laughed. No, son. They do have a home and it's this one. This is their home just as much as ours. We are not kings or queens. We are not better than anyone. We just happen to have the privilege of leading the pack. I explained. But my point is, we eat with our pack members because we are all equals here. So if you ever feel the urge to boast or brag about maybe becoming alpha or thinking you're special, don't. 'Cause you aren't. You are a Huntington. Yes, but names are elevated and destroyed all the time. I looked at him with furrowed brows. The only thing that has kept us going all this time is our ability to stay humble and think of the greater good. Don't ever forget we work for the pack. Not the other way around. I lectured. The warriors and pack members give me a round of applause. I'm sorry. Dad Felix looked down. I know I was too hard on him as he's only 13. But I'll be damned if I raise an entitled brat who thinks he's special just because of a last name. And yes, you are totally gonna shift tonight. You are also in Underwood. I bragged. What was your saying about names? You and your brother were lucky to shift with your human blood. Don't forget that. Nothing is guaranteed in this life. Rosalind scolded me. I know, Ross. Don't worry. I didn't forget the stress I went through off my first shift. I cried so hard your brother thought I was ill. I snickered, but my face was of sorrow. Really? Dad, you cried? Nate asked me. Worriedly. Yes, I did, son. I was 13 like Felix, but I thought I wouldn't shift and miss that connection with my dad. And my father is my hero. He raised me almost alone until I was 5 so my mom could go to med school. I told him with a sad tone. I never resented my mom for it. I understood her sacrifice. But my dad really is my hero. You're my hero too. Daddy, Carol said, and I melted. Thanks, sweetheart. But I'm a far cry from my dad. I just hope I raise strong, confident, and humble children. I replied shyly. Good morning, everyone. Paul greets as he walked inside the dining hall. He bowed his head to my mate. The warriors stand up and greeted him. Then, they seat back. Good morning. Beta, is everything ready? Rosalind asked him. Yes, Alpha. Everything is on track for tonight. I even set up a small tent so your children can strip in private. Paul replied, and the children shot their eyebrows up and got wide-eyed. You know, my son shifted last year. It was the proudest I've ever been so far as a dad. Paul bragged. I know. You didn't shut up about it for a month. Rosalind snickered. And now you won't shut up about it. Especially because you have to shifting tonight. He replied with a wide grin. Thanks. Beta. Rosalind dismissed. He bowed his head and left. Max by my fated mate. Weights flashed around me and the wind spun with the beat of the heavy techno music the DJ was playing. We're gonna have to strip off. Felix asked worriedly. We laughed. How are you supposed to shift into a wolf? I'm not ruining any clothes. I'm alpha, not rich. Rosalind snickered. Everyone laughed. Uncle Felix raised her with a clear conscience about money. We may look wealthy, but we live on a steady paycheck. And I don't even get paid. I'm not getting naked in front of anyone. Carol shouted. Felix nodded along. You're not getting naked in front of anyone. Didn't you hear the beta? There is a private tent for you to strip. I told her with an annoyed tone. And where is Felix gonna strip? She asked me. I gasped. I did not think of that. In the same tent. There is only one. I replied, seriously getting annoyed. I'm not stripping in front of him. Are you crazy? She yelled. Oh my goddess. I stayed in my underwear in front of goddess knows how many people when I first shifted. You get a 10 and are still complaining. You'll shift where I tell you to and that's it. And if you say another word, you'll shift at the podium. I barked. She was left shaking by my words. I don't want to get naked in the same tent as her either. Felix stated with a scowl. Are you freaking kidding me right now? Rosalind, deal with your children. I was stressed. I'll put up a towel between you and Carol so you both have some privacy. Is that okay? She told him. Yes, thank you. Mom Felix replied with a happy grin. I sighed. It's evening. The compound's crawling with pack members and everyone was ready for the ceremony to start. And so was I. Despite the stress this morning, I wish I got a tent in my day. Not gonna lie. Anyway, can't wait to witness my kids' first shit. Drum roll, please. Rosalind. Good evening. My wolf family. I started at the microphone. Today is a very special full moon ceremony. As you know, it's my son and daughter first shift. The crowd applauds. It's a special day in a parent's life when you get to experience it with your child. So I'm excited for them. But first things first. Is there any challenger tonight? I asked as I gestured them to come to the podium. Our way of life is protected due to its secrecy. What would your reaction be if any of your children compromised that? The challenger asked. Fair question. I deal with it the same way I deal with any pack member's child. I'd investigate the nature of the infraction and determine the punishment. Of course, we can't expel minors from the pack. So I would go about the same way for my children as I would anyone else's. Like my mate was teaching our children this morning, we are not different from any pack member. We are only privileged enough to get to lead. I replied, see why I'm invincible. After the challenges are done, I declare open the full moon ceremony. The crowd cheered. Son, are you excited? I asked Felix as we all came down from the podium. I guess. I have to get this over. Right. Felix replied with a brooding humor. I'm super excited. Carol chimed in with a smile. Yes, Carol. Just remember you may not shift yet. And if that happens, it's okay. There's always next year. John told her. I know, Daddy, she replied in a matter-of-fact tone. Felix, you're allowed to be excited. Your dad only said what he said so that you don't get cocky. There's a difference. You know, I told him with a concerned tone. I know. Mom, I guess I'm just worried. He said as he looked down. You have nothing to be worried for. This happened to every single one of us here. Just breathe in and out and relax. It comes when it comes. I comforted him with a hug. What a beautiful moon tonight. Right. Paul said. He, Christina, and their son and daughter joined us. Yes, it is. Christina. Good evening. Children. I greet them. So does John and the kids. Good evening. Elsa. Luda. Felix. Carol. Mate. The kids greeted us. Not long after that, we go to the tent Paul set up for the children. I direct Felix and Carol inside the small tent. They got cramped, but I managed to hang a towel in between them. Barely. Then we waited. And waited. Till Carol starts shifting. Felix got scared and left the tent trapped in the towel. He looked at me frightened. Why am I not shifting? He asked with a scared tone. I don't know. Why did you have to jinx it? John. I punched him. He winces. I was just teaching him a lesson. I never expected he wouldn't shift. He said, looking at me scared, and pressing his hand where it hit him. As we speak, a small wolf emerged from the tent. Carol's wolf form is beautiful. Though small, she looked confused. As expected, I'm going to shift and take Carol to a run. I said, and then it happened. Nate starts shifting too. His eyes turn pitch black and then he gets down to his knee. Oh my goddess. John and I gasped. I moved him to the tent and tried to get his clothes out of him before it's ruined. Oh, come on. Even Nate is shifting now. Felix winced. He looked stressed. Cool boy. John picks Carol's wolf up and places her on his arms, pets her fur and kisses her. She's such a daddy's girl. I'm sorry. Son, you can put your clothes back on if you want, John told Felix. But he refused. No, I don't accept it. I was born to be alpha, and I can't be one without my wolf. Moon goddess, please hear my prayer. Don't do this to me. I beg of you. Felix got down to his knees and raised his hands together in prayer. Minutes later, I leave the tent with another beautiful small wolf. Oh, you can shift and take them. I'll stay with Felix. I told John and he puts Carol down, who snarled at him. John entered the too small tent for his size, but at least it was a place to hang his clothes. 5 minutes later, his majestic golden wolf leaves it and takes the twins with him for a run. Fun fact, wolves from the same pack could communicate with each other through the mind link. However, that didn't work unless you're actually shifted. It only worked in wolf form. I mean, you can communicate with werewolves in human form too. Of course, as long as they belong to the same pack as you. I take Felix up in my arms, and hearing him cry broke my heart. He is 13, the final age to shift into wolf. If he can't shift, he can't be alpha. I mean, how one is supposed to lead a pack of wolves if he isn't one to begin with? He's crushed. Alphas are born, so he's been training for it since birth, like I and Emmett were. As the night went trough, I got him back at the tent and he got dressed. Then, I took him to a corner and just held him. He's inconceivable. Paul could see both our faces from afar and figured it out. He still looked worried. Am I seriously gonna have to pick between wins like my dad? Was that my fate too? Please, Dottis, whatever you do, don't do this to me. An hour later, John, Carol, and Nate returned to us. We're just about to go back to the house. John directed them to the tent. They shifted back with their backs from each other. They left dressed. John entered next and left already with his pants. His shirt he put it after. Damn, my mate's hot. Let's go, he asked as he came to us with the kids. They all looked at Felix with pity, and it crushed him even more. I'm sorry, son. I really am. I can't believe this. I swear I didn't think this would happen. John told him with teary eyes. I know, Dad, he replied after he got out of my arms. It's okay. I just can't believe this is. Felix fell down. I rushed to pick him up and his eyes were pitch black. Motherfucker. I just got him dressed. I shouted and John starts undressing him. At least, his shirt and pants before. His bones cracked and got rearranged. Fur emerged from his every pore. His nose stretched into his snout. I gave John a look and started taking my clothes off. But I finished at the tent. Of course. Minutes later, I took Felix to a run. We returned at the crack of dawn. By then, everyone was already asleep. I left him inside his room to shift back and went to mine. I can't believe that happened. I'm exhausted, I said as soon as I shifted back. I crawled to the shower and dropped in the bed still naked. If it weren't for the fact that no one ate breakfast till we got there, I'd totally skip it the next morning. Good morning, Maddox Bitey, my fated mate. White splashed around me and my wounds spun with the beat of the heavy techno music the DJ was playing. John woke me up. He always looked chirpy. Don't wake me. I'm exhausted. Your son didn't want to return ever. I spoke as I stretched. He is your son too. I'm pretty sure. He snickered. That was a scare last night. Oh my goddess. I can't believe I was this close to having to pick between wins. I was so frightened. I confessed. Tell me about it. I just said that to scare him off. Not to scare us. He snickered. The next time you say something in that nature, I'll punch you in the stomach. I threatened. Really? Right in front of your children. That's the example you want to set. He smirked as he kissed me. I can't with the kisses. We rushed to the dining hall as we're already late. At the table, I see my kids grinning wide. None more than Felix. Felix, you wore me out yesterday. And I can't believe Nate is the youngest boy of our families to shift ever. That's such an Underwood move, I said as I eat. I'm starving. So is John. Sorry, Mom. I was just so excited. I mean, after I thought I lost Alpha. He frowned. Thanks, Mom. I'm precocious like Dad. Nate grinned. Hopefully not. I snickered. Good morning. Alpha, there's a situation. Paul barged in the dining hall looking serious. Good morning to you too. Beta, don't you sleep. I joked but he wasn't in the kidding mood. I'll wait for you at your office. He stated and left. I excused myself and followed him. Everyone at the table was curious. As I entered my office, he closed the door. One of our patrols caught a rogue traveling off our territory last night. You pulled me from breakfast because of a rogue. Is he enchanted? I snickered. He didn't laugh. No, the problem is who he was with. See, the warriors tried to scare him out of our territory, but he retaliated and they had no choice but to kill him. Not far from where he was, the warriors found a pup. Can't be more than his second shift. He elaborated in a serious tone. Obviously, no one harmed him and he was brought to the compound. After he shifted back eventually, we noticed his body looked badly bruised. Also, there are scars all over him and signs of abuse. He continued and I gasped. I asked my mate to bathe him and put him in a change of clothes. Also, she treated the injuries as best she could, but he trailed off. I understand. Do we have people at Deef's? I asked him, worriedly. We do. Yes, do you want me to? Explain the situation to them and have him delivered safely to the authorities. It needs to be handled carefully as it's a child. I interrupted him. Of course. It will be done. Thanks. Alpha. Thank you for bringing this to me. Also, tell the person from Deef's that in case she doesn't have any werewolf to foster him, we're available. I told him and he looked shocked at me. Are you sure? Alpha. He nearly bit my mate's hand was tried to treat him. Paul sounded tense. Yes, I am. I'm experienced with difficult children. Tell them just in case they don't have a wolf couple to foster. My mate and I are available. I don't want him to fall under human care. He might get spooked and give away our secret. I said firmly. Good thinking. Alpha. I'll relay your message. Don't worry, he said and moved to leave my office. Thanks. Paul. I shot him an appreciative look. He bowed his head and left. My goddess. Who would travel with a puppy alone into someone else's territory? I'm guessing not the parent of the child. As a mother myself, I can't even imagine what that child must have suffered. Of course, I'm not gonna let him in the care of humans. What if he shifts right in front of them? It's too big of a risk for me to take. I just hope I can handle him indeed. But then again, it can't be worse than leading an entire pack of 500. Or is it? Time will tell. Right now, I need to eat if there's any food left at the table. Thank you all for joining me in the wild world of Wild Werewolf. I hope you had an amazing time. Don't forget to subscribe, leave your comments and likes, and come back for more wild adventures. See you next time.